If you don't know who I am, it's time we meet. My name is Paula, and ain't that sweet? And here's why you should listen to me, because I have the answer to where you want to be. What I want you to know is that I'm not from here, and I had a very different career. Instead of getting a job like an average Jane, I'm a dancer and a singer, and I studied things arcane, like the brain. That taught me that most trainings are simply insane. They want you to be more motivated and productive. They want you to keep score and be very, very active. And then everyone says, that sounds so good, but you know, they never do it, even if they should. I want you to know it's not your fault. You need to take these trainings with a grain of salt, because there is a missing piece. Without that piece, it might as well be in Chinese. You will struggle and struggle and never reach expertise. But my trainings fill in the gap. So you will learn everything in a snap, because studying the brain made it perfectly clear that only the organized brain solves problems, my dear, no matter how severe. And you will have all your answers right here. Welcome to my show, One Solution for Everything, that has to do with your brain. In this show, One Solution for Everything, we blend magic and science to create radical, rapid solutions. And let me introduce myself. My name is Paula Oleska. I'm a mindset maverick, procrastination wrangler, best-selling author, and the creator of the Brain Upgrade Method that produces those radical rapid results by blending magic and science. I've been in practice for over 30 years, and I've worked with around 8,000 people individually and in groups in 5 different countries. And I'm very happy to share some of the secrets of unlocking your inner intelligence with you. My company name is Natural Intelligence Systems, and that means that we unlock your natural intelligence in very natural ways. And that's why I like to start with this quote, which you probably have seen before, that what lies behind you or before you, it fades in importance compared to what's within you. This is what I call your inner intelligence. But the problem is, how do you get in touch with this intelligence? How do you unlock your inner genius? That's the essence of my work. That's what I do in my private practice and in my workshops. And I'm happy to share those secrets with you. So we do that in every episode. We share different secrets. So feel free to go back and watch some of the past episodes. And in this episode, we are going to continue to work with eliminating emotional issues to restore clarity of mind. But before we get there, I want to also review the underlying principles behind what I teach in my system, which is a shift from the old paradigm to the new paradigm. The old paradigm is mind-based. So as you probably heard, you need to use your mind to solve all of your problems, whether it's changing your behavior, changing your habit, resolving your emotional issues. Everything has to be done with your mind. Well, I didn't find that to be very effective, and my clients who came to work with me also didn't find it to be very effective. That's why they chose a different way of working. So I formulated what I call the new paradigm. The new paradigm is based on current neuroscience, and I'm really happy to have that neuroscience now to support what I do. There is a neuroscience called embodied cognition, and it teaches you that cognition, which is your intellectual processing, is actually embodied. It comes from your body. So these are the premises of the new paradigm, which are also supported by this branch of neuroscience. So first of all, your brain is a communication network spread throughout your entire body. It's no longer isolated to the structure in your head. That's very important because that means that your body is intelligent. This is where that inner treasury lies. Your body is holding the secrets to you being a genius, to performing on a much higher level. And it's very hard to get in touch with that. But now you have a system, the system that I created, that taps into the body to help you reach your full potential. And what the embodied cognition says, that your mind not only is not on the top of the pyramid, it actually emerges from the way you process information on the body level. So in order to change your mind, the fastest way is to engage your body. Some people know that because they know that if they go for a walk or work out, they will have a more clear mind and they often solve their problems and make better decisions. So that's good news. And the even better news is that you don't have to go to the gym, walk, run, or sweat. You can actually do some activities that are available while you are sitting at your desk. And that's what we are going to be talking and doing here. So what I just shared with you is the essence of the new paradigm. And as I said, it is supported by the most current neuroscience called embodied cognition. And today we are going to look at part 5 of resolving emotional issues to restore clarity of mind. We've been doing that for previous 4 episodes, and you can go back and watch them. You will definitely learn a lot. And in this episode, I'm briefly going to summarize what we covered, and then we'll move on to the topic for today, which is how to use the magic words with your magic circle of rings. This is what we covered in the previous segments. So we started with a fairy tale where an old wise woman helped a young woman save her relationship with the gift of the magic circle of rings and the magic words. And indeed, that young woman did not break up with her boyfriend, but established a new pattern of communication so they can solve their problems before they became very serious. Then I revealed that that young woman was actually my client, and she was able to accomplish that by using the tools that I had given her. And those tools are actually the magic circle of rings and the magic words. So then we were delving into emotions and what emotions are. So this young woman had an emotional charge about her relationship, but the emotions are layered. So underneath the emotional charge, there was another problem that needed to be solved. And the problem is that just like this young woman, when you want to solve your emotional problem, you get advice based in the old paradigm, such as, forget about it. Why are you stressing about that? It's not important. It's not a big deal. It's not the end of the world, and things like that. Does that help you feel less upset? It doesn't. I'm sure you know that. When I ask this question in my workshops, everybody says, no, these types of advice make me just more upset. Because this is a solution based on logic and not on magic. And I love logic, but in its right place. But you need magical solutions, because then we also delved into some neuroscience, which is how your brain really works. As it turns out, you need to know that the emotional brain, that you have a whole big part of your brain devoted to processing and generating emotions. And that beautiful emotional word, brain, does not respond to words, logic, and reason. So if you're trying to reason with someone who is in an emotional state, or if you are emotionally upset and someone tries to explain to you logically why that makes no sense, not only it makes you more upset, but it literally falls on, so to speak, deaf ears, because your emotional brain does not process words. What does it process and how can you reach it? By movement, touch, and emotion. So if you want to help somebody who is upset, you need to use movements such as reaching towards them and maybe putting your arm around them, touch, for instance, touching them or even touching them gently on the shoulder. And if you can't do physical touch, you can reach them with your emotion, with your compassionate tone of voice that will soothe them and not irritate them further. So this is what we talked about in one of the recent episodes, because you need to understand that your emotions do not respond to words. So old paradigm does not resolve your emotional issues. And then we also looked at what emotions really are. So you need to understand that emotions are physical phenomena. They are generated deeply in your physiology, and they are like coughs and sneezes. They are symptoms of something that's going on. So you probably will not try to solve your cough or sneeze with your mind, would you? It makes no sense. So the same thing goes for emotions, because just like coughs and sneezes, they have a message. So if you have physical symptoms, most likely you would want to find out where it's coming from. And this applies to your emotions. But since I could not find any solution that made any sense and resolved anything, believe me, I did a lot of research. And I came up with my own solutions. After months and months of research, I finally got the answer. The question that I was trying to resolve: why do we have these persistent so-called negative emotions? Did you notice that if you get rid of, quote unquote, get rid of one of them, they keep coming back? So I was curious to find out what is really going on. And that's why I did my own research. And I finally got the answer. And I thought that answer, everybody already knew that. But as it turns out, even today, which is at least 20 years later, nobody still knows it. And this is the answer. The so-called negative emotions are there to alert you when your needs are not being met. It's very simple. It just took months of crying for me to get to that point. But once you understand that, you will also understand that the only reason why you have those negative emotions is that they are survival messages. They are trying to tell you, look, something is not working. You need to find out what it is. So that's why I created a system that guides you step by step into finding out what is your need, so you can resolve your negative emotion. And I can assure you that once you resolve your need, that negative emotions will never show up again in the same context, because the only reason why it shows up is to tell you that your needs are not being met. So when the job is done, it will dissolve. What will be in its place? The so-called negative emotions have their positive aspects, and we'll get to that in a moment. So Now that you have this foundation, we can go back to the magic circle of rings and the magic words that my client used to solve her problem. And this is time for real magic. So this is a very ancient Chinese magic. The circle of rings has been found by Chinese medicine about 5,000 years ago. And these circles represent meridians. Meridians are energy lines that control, in the Chinese system, they control all the functions of your body, physical, mental, and emotional. So as you can see, each circle represents one emotion. And let me tell you that this cycle or circle of emotions has been also confirmed by Western science. There has been a lot of research, and there are many neuroscientists or scientists, psychologists who specialize in this research, and they have confirmed that these emotions are universal. They are not culturally based. The triggers could be culturally based, but the emotions exist in every human being, in every context, everywhere in the world. So you can be quite sure that you are tapping into something very ancient within yourself, something that is biologically programmed into you to help you solve your problems. So as you can see, each ring in the circle governs a specific emotion, but meridians, as I mentioned, also govern physical functions of your body. So this shows you that emotions are really somatic events, which means they happen in the body, and that there are no negative emotions. Because if you eliminate the so-called negative emotions, you will make the circle crooked, and we don't want to have a crooked circle. And besides, you will be eliminating very important physical aspects of your functioning, and that is completely impossible. You will be damaging your health in a really bad way. And also remember that what I already told you earlier, that the so-called negative emotions are only here to tell you that your needs are not being met. Once you get your needs met, they will disappear. And we are going to use our magic circle to do that. So the first step will be to use the magic circle of rings. This will be the first step to get your needs met. And we will need the magic words. So before we get into there are two types of magic words. So before we get into the magic circle, I want to show you, I'm going to guide you through an exercise that's going to take about 15 minutes. And if you don't have 15 minutes right now, you'll be better off if you pause the video and come back to it when you have time, because it's best to go through the cycle in an uninterrupted way. I'm going to also show you what I want you to do. So for the duration of this exercise, I want you to engage your body in a very simple way by holding a stress-releasing points on your forehead. So you can easily rest your elbows on your desk and just follow what I'm going to guide you through while you gently touch the points on your forehead that have been determined to release emotional stress. And they will, so this is a way you can engage your body in a very simple way without leaving your desk and without having to exercise, sweat, and exert yourself. Because this is very purposeful for this particular purpose. Okay, so but let me explain to you the magic words. There are two types of magic words. The first type are the words of acceptance, and that's what we are going to be doing right now. As I just mentioned, it's going to take us between 10 to 15 minutes. And I would like you to engage your emotional stress response while you exercise your words of acceptance as we go through the magic circle of rings. And later on, I will also teach you the second type of magic words. So, engage your body. And I want you to say to yourself quietly, I now accept and express all of my emotions. And observe what is your reaction within. Most of the time, people don't have a full acceptance of their emotions, because from the time you were a very small child, you were always told, don't feel this, don't feel that, don't get angry, don't get scared, there's no reason to cry, and things like that. So from a very early age, you have been trained not to accept your emotions, and that was later on reinforced by different New Agey spiritual and psychological teachings, where you were taught that fear and anger are really bad emotions for a number of different reasons. But as we already established, first of all, they are not negative, and second of all, you can't eliminate them because you'll be damaging your internal organs. So this exercise is going to help you accept and express all of your emotions. I need to say a few words about express. Most people also not only have a resistance to feeling the emotions, they have resistance to expressing the emotions because expressing leads to problems. So there are different ways of expressing. And of course, expressing externally is not always beneficial and it's not always purposeful. I'm going to teach you how to express your emotions which are not going to damage your relationships or expose you to criticism or condemnation. But first, you need to accept that you have a right to feel and express each of those emotions. Okay? So, as I said, you engage your emotional stress response, and we are going to start with emotion of joy. Theoretically speaking, joy is a positive emotion. However, I would like you to reflect on how many judgments you heard as a child that your joy was not appropriate, because the grown-ups in your environment maybe had a hard time. Maybe they were upset. Maybe they were depressed. Maybe they were troubled. And you were disturbing them with your childhood joyful laughter. And very often you directly hear, stop laughing, it's not funny, stop being so loud, don't be so rambunctious, and so on. And these are the judgments against joy. So I want you to take a moment to reflect on all the different negative things you heard that are blocking your joy. And I want you to realize that it's your birthright. You have a right to feel joy. It does not disturb anybody when you are joyful. And you have a right to feel joyful even when other people around you are upset. So take a moment for that to sink in. And now say to yourself, I now accept and express my joy. And observe how that affects you. We are going to move counterclockwise through the circle because that diminishes the energy according to the Chinese system. And we want to diminish the emotional charge. So we are now going into the anger. Anger has been here severely judged as a bad or negative emotions. And I have met many people, especially women, who say, oh no, I never get angry. Well, it's not so good because, again, it's a legitimate emotion. In one of the previous segments, I talked about how you have a part of your brain devoted to generating anger or fear. They are your biological responses to danger. The only reason why you get false readings of danger is because you have an unexpressed backlog of anger and fear. We'll get to fear in a moment, but let's stay with the anger for a moment. So because anger has been judged so badly, then most of the time, people are afraid to even go there, especially women. But there is a way to express anger that is completely safe, and I will guide you through that in the second half of our workshop today. So I would like you to say to yourself, I now accept and express my anger, observe how it feels, and then absorb what I was just explaining to you, that you have a right to feel anger. It's biologically programmed into you. Feeling anger is not harmful or hurtful to anyone. And you have a right to feel it because anger, just like the other so-called negative emotions, is trying to let you know that in whatever situation you're in, your needs are not being met. So that gives you a reason to embrace your anger. Take a moment for this to sink in. And now say to yourself again, I now accept and express my anger. Let's move on to the next element in the cycle, which is fear. And fear has been also judged as a negative emotion. And I'm sure you heard many times different bad opinions about fear, such as you can either have fear or love, which is completely wrong, and that feeling fear makes you a coward. Feel fear and do it anyway, or that fear is something false reality appearing real. These are all judgments. They have nothing to do with the reality of fear. Fear is a biological reaction generated by the part of your brain called the amygdala when it senses danger. And again, the reason why you have false readings about danger is because you have an unexpressed, unprocessed backlog of fear. And if you follow my system, you will have a safe way to process the fear, and then you will have clear readings about what the fear is about. So say to yourself right now, I now accept and express my fear, and observe how that feels, and then absorb what I was explaining just a moment ago, which is that your fear is a biological response programmed into you. You have a right to feel it, and it gives you very important information that for some reason you are not safe. And fear does not make you a bad person or a coward or any other judgment that you heard about it. And now say to yourself again, I now accept and express my fear. And now we are moving on to the next emotion, which is grief and regret and sadness. These are also legitimate emotions, part of your biological equipment. They have less judgment than fear or anger, but they are still not fully acceptable. You may have heard things like, "Why do you cry so much?" Crying is an expression of this element. So why do you cry so much? "Oh, you're so sensitive." This is what I used to hear when I was younger. "Oh, you're so sensitive." Well, of course I'm sensitive. I'm very emotional. And I respond to things emotionally. And that's why I needed to find a system that was going to help me bring my emotions into balance. So there is nothing wrong with being sensitive. There's nothing wrong with crying. There's nothing wrong with feeling grief and regret. So say to yourself, I now accept and express my sadness, grief, and regret. Not only these are legitimate emotions, just like all emotions biologically programmed into you, they also help you transform your response to a situation. So grief is a legitimate response to things that you regret that happened and regret that didn't happen. Grief allows you to actually let go of different situations. I'm sure you heard many times in different situations that you should let go of this or that, your anger or people or situations or attachment to something, but nobody tells you how you are supposed to let go. Well, I'm giving you a tool. The tool to let go is experiencing your grief. Grief is an expression of sadness about a loss or sadness about things that happened or didn't happen. And if you give yourself permission to process that grief, which often comes in the form of crying, you will gradually be able to actually let go of whatever it is that you need to let go of. Give yourself a moment for that to sink in. And now say to yourself again, I now accept and express my sadness, grief, and regret. Now we are moving into the element of empathy and compassion. And I'm sure you heard many, many, many encouraging words how you need to be compassionate towards other people, and also that you should love yourself. Well, I'll give you a secret in this element. Loving yourself is a lot more than looking in the mirror and saying, I love you. Staying with this element of compassion will give you actual tools, what it means to love yourself. So this element encompasses empathy and compassion. And in the Chinese system, there is an inward-facing aspect and outward-facing aspect. We are mostly encouraged to cultivate our outward-facing aspect, which is compassion towards others. But in this element, we are going to focus on compassion towards yourself and feeling empathy with yourself. How are we going to do that? You are going to express compassion to the parts of you that are angry, scared, and sad. And you're going to say that to them in the you form. So I want you to say to those parts of you, you have a right to feel the way you do. There is nothing wrong with you. You have a right to be angry. You have a right to be scared. You have a right to be sad. I love you just the way you are. And you are saying that to the parts of you that are experiencing or have experienced anger, fear, and sadness. You can say to them again, I love you just the way you are. I feel compassion for your pain. I will help you heal that pain. I will always be there for you. I will stop judging you. I now understand that you are legitimate. I embrace you. I take you in. And we are going to solve problems together. If there are other words that you would like to say from your own heart to those parts of you that have been experiencing anger, fear, and sadness, go ahead and take a moment to do that. And now we are going to move on to the emotion of joy. Say to yourself again, I now accept and express my joy, and observe your reaction. Most likely, it's quite different from your first reaction. What I hear from participants in my workshops is that the joy feels more grounded, feels more real, and they can really connect to it. And now, looking at the whole circle together, I want you to say to yourself again, I now accept and express all of my emotions, and observe how that affects you now compared to your first reaction. If you're like most people, you will feel a significant difference in your relationship to your emotions. But it will take more work, so feel free to repeat this exercise as many times as you want, because there's always a deeper level. So you can do that tomorrow, you can do that the day after, you can do that every week, and you will deepen your relationship with yourself. You will start understanding and accepting yourself on a deeper level. And then you'll be ready for the next step, which is the second type of magic words, which I'm going to reveal to you in the second half of our presentation on this topic. And in the meantime, I also want to tell you that this really works like magic. When I teach this process to different people, and I have taught this to quite a large number of people by now, the results are often completely magical. So, for instance, one woman who was very upset, her husband was going to pick her up after a workshop, and as it turned out that he couldn't make it, she got very, very upset, and I guided her through the process that includes the magic words and the magic circle of rings. And in 15 minutes, she was able to realize that her anger really was not at her husband. There was a previous relationship that was triggered by his reaction. And she realized, she literally said, maybe I have unrealistic expectations of my husband. And that happened in 15 minutes without any prompting on my part, and without any discussion of her situation with her husband or her trigger, just because I guided her through this process of self-discovery and learning how to get her needs met. And this is what the result was. So it's worth taking your time to learn this process, because you can have a result like that as well. You can feel more complete, and you will have tools to solve your emotional issues and restore clarity of mind. So bye for now, and I will see you in the second half of this presentation. Welcome to the second part of our presentation about resolving emotional issues to restore clarity of mind. If you didn't watch part one, I would encourage you to do it now, because without the first part, this part will not make much sense, or it will not be as useful. But if you have watched part one, then welcome and join me on the journey through the magic circle of rings that I'm going to guide you in a new way. So here we are, back to the magic circle of rings. And we are now going to look at the magic words of the second type. The magic words of the second type are the words that I call venting. Venting is an uncensored expression of how you really feel. If you reflect on that, you will realize that we hardly ever express how you really feel, except maybe when you are really happy about something. But we don't have a good way to really process or work with emotions such as anger, fear, or sadness. They are not really accepted. And that's why in part one, we used the magic words type 1, which is words of acceptance. Now that you have learned to accept all of your emotions, we are going to get into expressing your emotions in a safe way. How do we express emotions in a safe way? You do it by yourself in a safe environment when you will not be overheard, you will not be criticized, you will not be judged. You will be completely in your privacy of your bedroom, bathroom, closet, or some other private space where you will have a complete freedom to use your voice. And if you can't use your voice, or you don't want to use your voice, you can also write the words of venting. But using your voice is very helpful, so whenever you can, I encourage you to do that. As I said, venting is uncensored expression of how you really feel. You've heard many commands, I'm sure, throughout your life, not to feel your anger, not to get angry, not to express your anger. It's rude, it's unkind, it hurts people, and so on. The same thing with fear. You should not express your fear, you should not be afraid, there's nothing to be afraid of, and things like that. However, what goes on inside of you cannot be dismissed like that. It demands expression. It's your life's energy that wants to flow. And if you block that flow, it's going to cause problems. Sometimes they are more emotional problems, and sometimes they are physical problems. I remember in some workshop, the instructor invited one of the participants, a woman, to get angry. And she said, I never get angry, I get migraines. Does that happen to you? I think we all have experienced that certain physical symptoms will reflect a blocked emotion. For instance, I noticed that if I get an unexpected pain in my shoulder, it usually has to do with that I'm apprehensive about something. that is about to happen. So I'm going to do a teacher workshop or do a presentation, or I have a challenging conversation with someone. And if I don't process that on the emotional level, my body lets me know that there is something going on. So that's why it's very helpful to pay attention to your physical symptoms. And many people already know that. So this will help you deepen your awareness of yourself, and also to process your emotions in such a way that you will not get them to the point when they will cause a physical problem. So we'll go now back to the magic circle of rings. I would like you to use the same exercise we did in part 1, which is you're going to gently hold your forehead for emotional stress release points. There are little bumps on your forehead. They are in slightly different place for each person. So that's why to make sure that you are covering the right spots, it's best to keep your fingers together and just cover your forehead with very light touch, no rubbing or pushing, just a gentle tug as if you are trying to separate your fingers a tiny bit. So I would like you to hold your forehead like that for the duration of this exercise, which is going to take about 7 minutes. You need to be sitting in a comfortable position, but I advise you not to lie down because people sometimes fall asleep when we do this. So let's start venting in the emotion of anger. Anger is best expressed when you talk directly to the people you are angry with, and you can say things in a way that you would never say, or usually you would not say to any person that you know. So when you are venting anger, it's perfectly fine to be unfair, to be blaming, to be judgmental, to be rude, and to curse. When my clients start to curse in this process, I usually applaud them because that's a real expression of how they feel, the intensity of their feeling. They're not creating the feeling, they are simply letting it out. People often say, I need to get things off my chest. How do you get things off your chest? The best way is to express how you really feel. So I'm going to guide you now through this exercise. You hold your forehead like that and focus on your anger. Pick a situation where you feel angry about something and directly talk to the people involved. I'm going to keep track of the time. We're going to do it for about 1 minute. And as I said, talk to them directly, tell them off, tell them what you think about them, tell them, how dare they do whatever they did or say whatever they said. And I'll tell you when it's time to move on to the next emotion. Okay, slowly bring this to a completion. Finish whatever you are saying. Take a deep breath, and we are going to move in a counterclockwise direction to the next emotion on the circle, which is fear. And even though people often think that there is only one emotion involved in any situation, I found it's very useful to go through the whole cycle because there are hidden elements, and those hidden elements very often reveal to you what's really going on. So if your main emotion, your main reaction to the situation you are working on is anger, then take some time to find the fear underneath the anger, and we are going to vent the fear exactly in the way that it appears, which is, oh my God, what's going to happen? Nobody's going to talk to me anymore. I'm going to lose my best friend. and so on and so forth. So you do the opposite of what you were always told to do, which is don't go there. And in venting process, you do the opposite. You actually do go there and you go as deep as it takes you. Some of my clients in this venting exercise, even though they were highly accomplished professional women, they ended up, when they were venting their fear, they went through this spiral of horrible consequences, ending with, I'm going to end up homeless on the street. So if this where it's going to go for you, that's fine, go there. It's much healthier to allow that part of you to express rather than just to keep it hidden. So let's move into fear. And I'm going to again, so go ahead and start expressing your fear the way it appears, and I'll tell you when it's time to move on to the next emotion. Okay, slowly wrap this up, and let's start exploring the next emotion on the circle, which is sadness, grief, and regret. When people feel angry, they often feel that there is no sadness, but I can guarantee you there is some. So take your time to find the sadness. Sadness, grief, and regret happen when there is a separation and potential of loss or an actual loss. So take a moment to find what makes you sad and allow yourself again to express your sadness exactly in the way that it appears, which is, it's so sad. I feel so sad that my friend doesn't talk to me anymore, or I'm afraid that she's not going to talk to me anymore. I'm so sad that I lost this, and so on. So find out what your sadness wants to say. Go ahead, and I'll tell you when it's time to move on. Start wrapping this up. Take a deep breath if you want, and let's slowly move on to the next element in the circle, which is compassion and empathy. In our culture, we mostly concentrate on compassion towards others, but as I told you in part one, this is an opportunity to learn what it really means to have compassion for yourself and to have empathy with what you are going through and the different hardships and traumatic experiences you have been through. So in the compassion element, we talk to the parts of you that were just expressing how angry, scared, and sad they were about this situation. And we are now going to comfort them with very specific messages. So the messages that usually need to be there are the ones that I shared with you in part one, such as, you have a right to feel the way you do. There's nothing wrong with you. And also, I'm here for you. I am the grown-up me is going to help you solve these problems. Now you're going to add specific messages depending on what you heard yourself vent in the three elements before. So if you found in, let's say in fear, that you were afraid of being punished or rejected or losing your job, you need to talk to the part of you that was expressing that in fear and tell her or him that, first of all, most likely it's not going to happen. But if something happens like that, you, the grown-up you, will be there to protect that younger self. These selves are usually younger. And there's another part of the process, which I'm going to share with you in one of the future episodes, that will help you do that more precisely. But just assume and accept that the parts of you that were expressing anger, fear, and sadness are younger than your chronological age. And they need to be comforted like young children. So whatever was the content of what you were venting. Take some time to specifically address those concerns as if you were talking to a young child that needed to be comforted and made feel secured and cared for. So go ahead and do that. And again, I'm going to tell you when it's time to move on. Okay, so start wrapping this up. And let's slowly move on to the element or emotion of joy. Joy, sometimes it's really hard to access when you are very upset about something. So this is what we can do. First of all, you can imagine there will be a joyful resolution to your situation, which is currently upsetting. Another possibility is that you think of something unrelated that makes you joyful if you cannot find any joy in this situation or the potential outcome. And if nothing else works, just think about the word joy and something will just happen, your internal chemistry. So go ahead, focus on joy in whatever way it works for you, and I'm going to tell you when to move on. Okay, so bring this to a close and check with yourself when you go back to your feelings of anger, fear, and sadness. Observe how you feel right now. Is the intensity of your reaction lower and the quality of your experience? And sometimes people actually come up with solutions to their situations. So take a moment to reflect on how this exercise made you feel and what happened to that original upsetting situation. If you're like most of the people who work with me, you will feel either some relief or huge relief. Sometimes people completely get things off their chest and they say the situation doesn't bother them anymore. Sometimes they come up with a solution to their situations. And sometimes they are still upset and they need to go through this again. This is only taking 5 to 10 minutes. So there is absolutely no reason why you shouldn't go through it again if you still feel upset or if something upsets you in the future. This is a process you can keep going back to whenever you need to solve a problem. There are other steps that I'll be telling you about in a moment and also in my future episodes, but this is a very important part of this exercise, the process of coming up with clearing up your emotional upsets so you can access your clarity of thinking. This is called 5-element venting because in the Chinese system, the system is called a 5-element system. So congratulations, you just had your first experience of venting. And so now that you have the magic circle of rings, and you know how it works, and you have the magic words, type 1 and type 2. And these are the exact tools that my client used to solve her relationship. And there is another component, the magic moves, that I will tell you about in one of my upcoming episodes that will directly affect the clarity of thinking, your ability to solve a problem. As you remember, the problem is that those emotions that you were just venting always indicate to you that some need is not being met, and you will have to use your mind to identify that need in a more precise way so we can actually meet this need. And all of that I'll be addressing in one of my next episodes. And I also want to let you know that I'll be teaching a workshop that will take you through all the steps, because there will be a few more steps that are not, I think they are not good to share in these little workshops. You need something that's very systematic, and I'll be teaching a workshop where you'll be step-by-step learning to identify your emotions in the body, identify different shades of emotions so you can be much more precise in what's going on with you. Then we'll deepen the exercises that we just did, the magic words type 1 and type 2, and then you're going to learn some magic moves and another process that's going to take you directly to identifying what that unmet need is in each situation and give you a tool to solve that problem and get that need met. So if you're interested to find out more, please send me an email and I'll be happy to tell you more about it. And you will join the exclusive community of people, mostly women, who have gone through this program and are able to solve their emotional problems on a regular basis.